energy on American soil, to be able to put Americans back to work and be able to create American energy security. To me, that's common sense. So those are two bills, in addition to the others that we've put through to be able to support the lifestyle and the values that we have here in the 3rd Congressional District. Last bill I'd like to mention and get to your questions is a bill that I have now that I just cleared through the full Natural Resources Committee, and I'm cautiously optimistic that I'm going to be able to get a vote on the full House floor when we go back in September. And it's the Healthy Forest Management Wildfire Act of 2012. To be able to get in and clear out the dead standing and fallen timber in our national forests, which is creating a threat not only to our communities and wildland-urban interface that is there, threatening our water sources as well. Just met with the Bureau of Reclamation, asked them to be able to get some information in regards to the impacts that we're going to see with all of the kill that we now see up on top of Wolf Creek. As those pine trees drop those needles and fall down, that was part of our watershed. The shade that they provided actually slowed the melt that was coming out. Bureau of Rec just expressed to me their concern that we're going to see a more rapid melt coming out of the hills. We don't have the water storage to be able to address this. This is a good common sense piece of legislation. A lot of this wood is actually usable. Let's go in, make sure that we're making management choices that work for the National Forest. I've toured with forest rangers, and they said part of the reason we're seeing bark beetle kill right now is a result of 100 years of poor management. We need to be able to get in and treat these areas. Make sure that we are addressing what is not only a life-threatening and property-destroying threat to this, but also going to impact a lot of the things I think we all truly hold dear in terms of the aesthetic beauty of our state here as well. So that's a bill that I'm hopeful again. I have cleared it again with bipartisan support. I'm batting 1,000 on that out of the Natural Resources Committee. And we're hopeful that we're going to be able to get that before the full House and to be able to get that approved as well. So, delighted to visit with you. Just a final comment. We do have 15.8. It's going to hit 15.9. Now it's going to hit $16 trillion debt in this country. We've got to be able to deal with the debt. We put forward plans to be able to address that. We've got to be able to get people back to work. We have better than 30 pieces of legislation passed through the House of Representatives, many with bipartisan support, that are stacked like cordwood on the doorstep of the United States Senate. We can't negotiate with ourselves. We have to have people that are willing to sit down and actually visit with us. I think the time is now. It is that important. We've got to be able to get our people back to work so that our children can inherit what many of us grew up believing was an American birthright, and that's the American dream. We can get this moving again, but let's open up those doors. Let's actually talk about rather than demonize each other, and let's get the job done. So thank you again for taking the time to be able to be here and invite your questions.
This is almost as good as the lottery, except there's no money involved. All right, 161.
That's me.
Yes, sir.
She's going to be next.
Okay. No guarantees on that.
I have a question that it concerns the apparent lack of thinking before one speaks. It seems to be going around in the campaigns these days. Thinking specifically of the senator from Missouri who stuck his foot in it. Is there some way that we can get candidates to check it before it comes out of their mouth? Because stuff like that is what kills candidacies, and it spreads. Any ideas?
Yeah.
What's your name and when you're running?
I think you get Aiken made a bad statement. No question about it. And I think that in terms of the solution for that, everybody that's running, you've got to take responsibility for what you do say. Can people misspeak? Can they make an error? They don't get second chances or being videotaped all the time. And that will hit. But I think one thing that I think many of us take a great amount of offense is the vitriol that you see in the campaigns, the hatefulness. Let's talk about the issues. Let's talk about the double-digit unemployment in the 3rd Congressional District. Let's sit down and talk about why businesses are shutting down because they don't have access to capital. Let's sit down and talk about regulations that continue to move that are inhibiting our ability to be able to create jobs and get this economy moving. Let's talk about those issues in terms of the national debt. Let's get this thing paid down. Let's lay the ideas out. Let's have a substantive discussion of what's really important to the folks right now. Because I do have to tell you, growing up here, and I think many of you could probably say the same thing, I'm a small businessman. I'm one of the few people that can actually walk into the room, look you in the eye, and tell you I'm not a career politician. I've been in Washington, but we're in August right now, 1 year, 7.5 months. Previous 30+ years of my life was in small business, going through. It's those common sense approaches that I think we just need to really be bringing to the forefront to be able to talk about these issues and to be able to seek out those real ideas, from people that are feeling the real impacts, because the people that I am talking to right now are saying something very different than the words I've even spoken as a small businessman. We've all worked through tough times, had some good times, and a lot of time when we're just treading water. But we've always said, well, next year will be better. Next year will be better even if the following year isn't. And I'm now hearing out of some of our constituents in the 3rd, they're asking the question, is it ever going to get better? I haven't heard Americans ask that question. So there is real concern out there about jobs, about the economy, about the debt in this country. That, in my mind, needs to be our focus. That needs to be what we need to be addressing.
147. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you're aware of the Jones Act. I know it's kind of not in the same, but for ships between U.S. ports, for hauling cargo between U.S. ports to be U.S. ships and U.S. citizens on those. Are you a supporter of that, sir?
I always like to make sure that I talk about what I'm familiar with and I'm not familiar with that, sir.
We'll be back to follow up with you on it.
You bet. Yeah, I will.
164.
That would be me.
Almost went down the line. I'm just kidding.
We talk about the national debt, and I hear every day about how much money we're sending to Mexico and Iraq and Afghanistan, and we're spending money on the wars over there, and our guys are sitting ducks with targets on their backs. There's not enough of them now to defend each other. How do you feel about bringing them all home and stopping the funding of Iraq as long as they're sending money to Iran and helping them get past the sanctions?
Those some discussions we've actually had on the House and the floor of Representatives. I think that when we look, we cannot nation build to the point where we have a permanent presence there, because a lot of us are asking, a fundamental question of why do we still have troops maybe in Germany? We've still got troops that are stationed in, and I understand some of the geopolitical arguments that are certainly out there. But when we look at the actions that took place in Libya, as an example, we had one resolution passed by the United Nations, and American Tomahawk missiles were flying at that point. The British and the French, who were the point of the spear, and believe me, I am no fan of Muammar Gaddafi. I am glad he is gone. He was a terrorist. People committed genocide within his own country. It is no loss to not have Muammar Gaddafi there anymore. But here's the fact, that without the American presence, the British and the French could not sustain a military attack. We've been pouring a lot of our resources, and believe me, I've got a son-in-law in the Air Force. A captain who is a friend of his who graduated from the Air Force Academy with him, got to speak to him in Afghanistan right now with a sidearm without bullets. Does not have ammunition for his sidearm. Now, I want to be very clear. The Army has bullets. They have ammunition. But, typically he is up in the air. But we've got to make sure our men and women have the best equipment. They've got all of the materials that they need to be able to execute the mission that we have out there. And we've been pouring a lot of our resources into other areas. And so I think this is something that's going to be